Hello guys, so welcome to a new episode in LabView. What I'm gonna do this time is I'm gonna go over basics. So we did a project before this and I know that there were some things that I said that might have been confusing. So I'm gonna go over basics and I'm gonna go ahead and start with arrays. I'm gonna assume that the even more basic than that, how LabView works, is already clear from I believe my first episode here. But okay, so we're gonna start the blank VI, and we're gonna have two screens here, as I said earlier, and these are directly linked to each other. You right click here to get options in the the GUI, and here you right click to get the programming functions. Now I'm going to maximize these two because we only need to work on one of them, and by clicking Ctrl E you can easily switch between the two, right, as you can see. Alright, so we're gonna start off here, and what I want to explain is arrays, and I've already tried to discuss it, and I gave a simile earlier with books and shelves, and I'm not sure if that really worked. There's something a little weird that does occur with arrays in LabView, and I'm gonna try to point that out early so that it won't confuse you guys later on. So what you do is, and I'm gonna right click here and go to my array functions, and I'm gonna keep this up here for now. And if we go into this into the front panel, you come here, and actually arrays will not be one of the default things you can do. You'd need to go to one of the other standards, and then here are the arrays, matrix and cluster. Now I'm going to talk about arrays and maybe later on clusters, but not really about matrices, because then, well, that's a lot more mathematical. You need to actually know math in order to handle matrices. So I won't get into those now. Those are for more advanced and more mathematical rather than programming users. Okay, so arrays. If you want to do an array out here on the front panel, you come here and you select array and you set it up. Now this array is not set up yet because I need to tell the program, I need to tell LabView, this is an array of what, right? So if I go to here, or if you can find it in the modern section as well, if you go to the numeric part, I can tell it that this is supposed to be a number. Now I need to tell it this, and I need to do it. There's many ways for me to do it. So there's here, for example, numeric control, and here numeric indicator, and which one of these I choose is going to determine what type of array this is, right? So a control means that I will put in the numbers, and an indicator means that it will be an output. Basically from the code will output numbers onto this array. In this case, I'm gonna do, well, we can do a constant, there we go. So now I can tell it what to do. And when you put your mouse on the corners, you see there's two different types of blue squares. This one's for the internal numbers, and this one, if you look at the mouse, you see the difference, and this one is for the entire cluster, for the entire array. So another thing about arrays, you can see I can make it spread horizontally but not vertically, or vertically but not horizontally. So either this way or this way, and that is because this is a 1D array, and I can do it either this way or that way, but that is it. I'm limited to, well, obviously that's it. I could add more dimensions, and to do this I would need to come here. I would right click on this and say add dimension. If I right click elsewhere, like here, I will not get the option for this part. This is the dimension part. An alternative would be to, an alternative would be to, I'm double clicking a lot. An alternative would be to right click, okay, if you right click somewhere else on this and go to properties. So that's gonna be just one way of doing this. 1 second while this loads up, there we go, and then you go to your, not here, not here, where is it? Data, nope, it's not here. Okay, So you need to actually do it on the number side right here. I need to right click here and say properties, and I believe that should bring up the dimensions. Yeah, there we go, the size bar for dimensions. So we have to keep an eye out for this thing because it changes, but the dimensions could be easily added from out here and say add dimension. So now it's 2 dimensions, as you can see on the side, and now I can spread it this way, right? So now I can change the shape into whatever 2-dimensional shape I want. Now when you go to a 3rd dimension, this is what I want to try to explain, because it does not occur as a 3D object with like X, Y, and Z. It happens in a what LabView calls them. Well, the first one down here, and it adds to the top, not to the bottom, right? So I'm gonna add here another dimension, right? So what happened, the dimension was added up here, not down here. So this last one is always gonna be your column. This is gonna be a row, page, and volume. That's how they are referred to in LabView. If I add a 5th one, and you can keep adding as many as you want, but the 5th one is just dimension 5. It has no actual reference name. But yeah, so keep in mind the bottom one is always your column. This is always your row. This is called page. And then I doubt anybody will ever need to go to volume, but if you do, that would be volume. Alright, so let's look at this from in here. So when I double click on this or that, it takes me to its other part, right? So this, I'm going to double click it, and this are connected. There's nothing you could do to disconnect these two. They are the same thing, right? So it's just that when you look at it on the front panel, this is what it looks like. When you look at it in the program, this is what it looks like. They are the exact same thing, right? That's very, very important for you guys to understand. Alright, so I'm gonna delete this, and we're gonna come here. Actually, I won't delete this. We can leave this on the side. We might use it later on maybe. And I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna go to this one. It's an array constant. And if you notice, that looks a lot like our array constant from here. But this doesn't say constant, because this one we can choose it to be a control or an indicator, right? But when we're inside the code here, the programming part, you can only do constants in here. So when I put this here, and this still needs to be declared, so I have to come here and say, okay, I want this to be a number, but there's no input or output. This is a constant. And what this means is that this part, even though I can come here and make, so see, we're doing that 1-dimension thing again. Even though I come here, let's make it 2-dimensional, and I put in this entire thing, this is a constant inside the code, right? This does not appear out here. This has no relation to the outside, the front panel. Remember, the front panel is only for inputs and outputs, which are called controls and indicators in LabView. So the only thing you see here are controls and indicators. Nothing else is shown out here, right? In here, you get to see everything. So this is my control in here, which this is what it looks like out here in the front panel. This is what it looks like inside the code. And this is a constant that I just made. Now, a constant doesn't need to look this big in a program. You can actually you can do something about it, I believe. There's an option somewhere, but I can't seem to remember where. It doesn't matter. So that's that. So what I want to explain now is this whole column, row, and so on issue. And I'm gonna just put one of these out here. I believe this is what I want to do. There we go. So now when I put the mouse over this, this is just the new element. Don't worry about what this means. It just shows you the name on the far right. So it says column, and then above that it says row. And then when I add a 3rd dimension in here, you'll see that this is a column, this is a row, and this is a page. So as you can see, the page is being added on top, not at the bottom. And here I'm going to add 4. Oh, I just took out one, sorry. 5, 6, whatever. So here we go. So we have column, row, page, volume, dimension 5, and dimension 6. It just stops giving them unique names. If you're using more than 3 or 4, then you should definitely have another way of doing things, or what you're doing is unrealistically complex. Something I can quickly mention is the thickness of the wire. If you noticed, it gets thicker as more and more data goes through it. So see, now it's getting thinner, thinner, and thinner. Alright, so I hope that made some sense to you guys. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna actually use the aid of this program here to explain to you what's going on. So the first thing that you do in LabView is going to be a row, not a column. I know I said that it is a column, but it does a row first before the column, right? So if we come here and do a constant and then throw some number into it, there we go, and then extend it this way. This here, when I go to my array function, insert into array, it will actually have no name. It will just be called an index, but it is regarded as a row, not a column, even though the first one here is always a column. I know it's a little tricky, but and I can show you the proof for that in a bit, but actually I can show you the proof for that right now. So as you can see here, this is called just an index, right? Let's go ahead and put things in here. So let's say this is 2, 3, 4. And you should remember that these could be made vertical as well. So I could force this to be to look like a column. Remember, it's only looking like a column. And there's this function, and I want to do another video, I believe, about all these functions once you guys understand how arrays work. But there's this function here called build array. And what this does is it takes two arrays and puts them together, basically. So I can click this little blue tab and I can add as many of these as I want just to join them together. So I'm going to join just two. I'm going to join this, and I'm going to join it with another one of itself, right? And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to show you what happens. Now we have a column and a row, right? So columns at the bottom, row at the top. So what do you think this will do? Well, what ends up happening is, well, first of all, there are two options within this itself. So I'm going to put another one in here, and I'm going to show you something else. So if we also do this and the same thing. So these are all going into it, are all the same thing, right? So, but you can right click on it and you can do concatenate inputs. And what this means is that it will put them one after the other instead of building them on top of each other. So this way, what ends up outputting is going to be a 1D array. And there we go, it's still a 1D. You can notice the difference in the lines. So to make this a little more obvious, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the wire, and I'm going to create an indicator so that we can see what's going on. And then I'm going to right click on this wire and create an indicator. And we can go ahead and do that for the first wire as well so we can see what's going on, right? So let's go out here. Array 2 is a 1D wire. That's the one that we had drawn up this way, remember? Now, appended array, this is the 2D array, and I'm going to draw it out in 2D space. And this is the array that we did here, which is also 1D, and I can do this either horizontally or vertically, it does not matter. I'll do it this way for now. We can make this a little smaller to fit more data in there. There we go. So now I'm going to run the program, and you guys will see. Okay, so the program is not running. Let's see, there's an error somewhere. Okay, I need to wire data to these blocks, and I haven't done that. There we go. So I'm going to run it and you'll see what happens. So there we go. So this is our initial model, right, which we drew this way. And remember, this could be either or. I'm going to create another indicator here to show you what I mean. Because, so now these two are representing the same data, or showing the same data. They're only indicators. And as you can see, they're showing the same exact thing. It doesn't matter in which dimension. Yet, when I put them together, right, and this is this one for the first building, not the concatenated one. And you can notice the simple difference, right? So what happens here is they put them next to each other. As you can see, there's two squares next to each other, and here they put them on top of each other, not next to each other. So what happens is this is automatically converted into a row and added as one row plus another row. Do you guys notice what I'm saying? So if I am to add something else here, a third one or a fourth one, no matter how many I add, what ends up happening here, and I have to run the code again, is they're putting them 1, 2, 3. You see how it's going? It's going one after the other. So they're putting them on top of each other, not like here. So here, the concatenated version, they're putting them 1. So here's the first one till 4. Then here's the second one till 4. And then if we put a third and a fourth, they'll come right after each other, one after the other. So I hope that kind of explains what I'm trying to say. So this is a small difference that does make minor confusion, because you need to understand that the first thing that occurs at the bottom is always the column, not the row. Even though when you go from a 1D to a 2D, the 1D is regarded as a row. So the computer does row, then goes down and does column, then goes back up to page and volume and goes through them in a normal fashion. Now, one more thing I want to talk to you about in arrays is this. You see they're all grayed out. That's because they're just uninitialized, and this can go up to infinity. Now, you do not need to open it up to infinity, obviously. You can just keep it as small as you want it to, it doesn't matter. This is why these are existing here. So basically these are you moving through the dimensions. Remember, the bottom one is column, this is row, page, blah blah blah. So your first dimension is always down here. So if I were to put a number here, and let's say 2, 3. Now if I come down here and enter a number, like 4, what ends up happening is I force the system to add all the zeros in this square, because if it doesn't, then it cannot initialize this, right? If I put a number here now, it cannot add it all the way here and not add these 3, because it has to add the entire fifth row, the entire fifth column into the system, even though it ends right there, right? Now, if I am to move in the column menu, this is the column menu, right? So as you can see, I just moved to the first column, right? So this is the 0th column, first, second, third, fourth. So if I move to 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm in the 4th column, and I can move up the rows. So now I am right here. 4th column, 4th row, 4th column, 4th row is the number 5, right? So if I had this looking this way, that's what that would tell me, right? If I go to 3rd column and then go up to, there we go, 3rd column, 7th row is the number 4. Do you guys get what's going on? Opening this is only so I can see more things, and if I go back to 0, 0, it's easier to see things, right? But you access the data from here. This is to access the data. I hope this is making some sense to you guys. So I wanted to do some simple explanation here about how the arrays work. So first, you start off with your row, which is actually your second dimension, but it starts off with a row. And this row could be drawn vertically. The next thing would be you stack them on top of each other, the rows, right? So that's just how LabView does things, right? So you just stack these on top of each other. I'm just using generic colors here to try to hopefully get something. So there we go. So this is how this happens. The rows, first you have the row. If you build them, you build up the rows, but you can access the columns before the rows, which is kind of might get confusing here. I can write this down maybe. So you have the dimension 5, and under that you have the volume, then you have the page, then you have the row, and then you have the column. Even though, right, so this is dimension 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope you all can see this. Even though it accesses the row first, so this is actually how it happens. And this will not be as confusing, but it's fine. So it does the row, then the column, then the page. Now, I want to explain what happens when you go up from here. So basically, what you need to understand is that each one of these is independent. Each one of these, the volume, the page, but the row and the column are intertwined, right? The row and the column work together. So I need you guys to understand that. And then the rest work individually. So the row and the column create a page. So basically, literally look at them and consider this as a page right here. Now when you add a second page, right, what ends up happening is you're adding a second page, right? So there we go, I just added a second page and I'll put it behind the first one, right? And then I can add a third page and so on and so on. Sorry guys, there we go. Right? So I can add as many pages as I want in this fashion. There we go, I'm just gonna add pages here. And that's what's going on here. So you have to notice that this is how it works, right? The system does not have something that looks more like isometric 3x3 XYZ looking system. Okay, it does not have something that looks like that, as you can see here. So you guys need to keep that in mind, that it doesn't have something that looks like this. This is not what the third dimension looks like. This is what the third dimension looks like in LabView, and you need to understand this. Right? It's kind of important for you guys to understand that the row and column come together, right? And then the pages, there's multiple pages behind each other, if you will. And then if you go up to a volume, what ends up happening is you have to consider that this entire thing, and this was the theme I gave as when I said that you should kind of consider it to be a book. So consider that this right here is a book that has a lot of pages in it, right? And yeah, I'm sorry, I'm doing this this way. This is not a tutorial for CorelDRAW, and I'm doing this very badly, but it doesn't matter. So here you have to consider this is a book now, right? Even though they don't call it a book, but now it's a volume of pages. But now what ends up happening is that you take this and then you create multiple ones of these. And again, it doesn't matter in which space you do it. The only thing that matters is that they're going to be numbered, right? So this is going to be your first one, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one, and so on. And then if you go up to your fifth dimension, and then you're doing this again, right? So it's like putting all of these in one big box and then getting multiple boxes after that. So this would be your first fifth dimension, second fifth dimension. Now, something I need to talk about as well, and that's going to be about this numbering system. I know I'm saying first, second, third, but you guys need to understand that things in LabView are numbered differently, right? So this is here, let's do it this way. This here is your 0th column, right? And then it's your first, and then it's your second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. So this also occurs for the rows, right? They start off with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, right? So you need to keep that in mind. Now, this here. So this orange is my first row, right? This is the first, so let's put it this way. I'm going to put all the dates. So this is the first row, right? Its index, right? Its index is 0. You have to keep that in mind. And its size is 8. And that is important, saying its size is 8. And the reason that is important is because its size needs to be 1 more than its maximum index, right? So as you can see, okay, so its index is 0, right? So it's row number 0. It's the first row, but its index is 0, right? So you have to keep that in mind. There's always going to be this n-1 factor going on whenever you're looking at things between the size of something and its position. Alright, there's going to be n-1. So first row is index 0. The 8th row or its size is 8. So this row is 8 because there's 8 squares in it. So column number 8 is 8 minus 1, 7, right? So if we are to go ahead and forget that all of these exist here, and let's just, if we just look at something like, oh, sorry guys, if we look at something just like this row, okay, so forgetting that this is a row of index 0, we need to understand that the index goes from 0 to 7, even though the size is 8. Do you guys get that? So forgetting everything else here, this is the first, second, third, so this is like that as far as size, and it's like this as far as position, right? So this is position and this is size. You have to keep that in mind. That's very, very essential, very crucial to understand the difference between those, right? So the size of this array, so for example, let's say you want to get the size of this array, you want to get this, the last block in this array, right? So let's actually do that. Let's go to, I clicked Control E on the wrong program. Let's come here, let's come in here, and let's say I take this array, so I'm gonna click these and just move them to the side. I don't care about them. I want to take this array, right? 002, 003, 0004, and let's say I want to access the last number. How would I do that? All you need to do is use this indexing function. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna end this video, and next time we'll go into these functions and do some simple explanation. So as you can see, array size and index array, and I'm gonna get into working on that in the next episode. Alright guys, so I'll see you guys on the next. I hope you understand how dimensions work in arrays now. Mostly, I've personally never used more than a 2D array. I could have used 3D, but I used clusters instead, and I'll get into clusters in next episode or the one after that. Alright guys, I'll talk to you in a bit. Bye.